My name is Nerida Bradley. I am a director and facilitator, and I'm also the co-founder of Trans Pride Cardiff. So I started studying theatre and drama at the University of South Wales. I did a Young Artists Festival at a pub theatre called The Other Room. I did lots of little assisting jobs there until I eventually became their trainee director. And now I spend my time assisting on productions, facilitating things for young people, and consulting on projects to make them more accessible. So my process is I tend to start with research. I'm very nerdy in that respect. For me, I find by finding everything out around the playwright, around the socio-political context of it, it then gives me a lot of abundance of kind of things to draw on, and it helps me to identify key themes. So for example, with the Radicalisation of Bradley Manning, that was really important, obviously because it's based on a real person. I also think quite visually when I direct. So for me, I quite often like to make a Pinterest board. So for my production, for example, I found this gorgeous image of Chelsea Manning in this red swimsuit on the cover of Vogue, taken by Annie Leibovitz, and that image was really striking to me, and then formed kind of the core visual identity of the production. So I was first assigned the Radicalisation of Bradley Manning when I was in my second year of university to direct as part of a professional practice module. When I first received the text, I was quite daunted, I think, because it was quite a hefty piece. It's got an episodic narrative structure, so it's kind of jumps back and forth all over the place. It's not a straight A to B narrative, but to me, I thought that was quite exciting because you have all these different places in time that you have to sort of find the parallels between and draw together. So that was actually quite exciting. I was also a little bit hesitant, I think, because this was after Chelsea Manning had come out, and immediately I was a bit concerned about how we would make this production accessible and sort of inclusive. So I think that was always the thing that I really was keen to achieve. So I think the thing that made our production unique was that it had an all-female cast. This to me felt really important and really powerful, and I was really happy that we got to have this amazing cast of all these different women from different backgrounds, different very strong personalities, all of them. Because for me it felt a little bit like that male name lost a bit of impact and lost a gender because it was constantly used to address women. And then I think there was a beautiful sense of kind of sisterhood and sort of shared experiences that came from working on the production as well. So we had the person playing Bradley wearing glasses, which was kind of used throughout the piece as a symbol of who was Bradley at that point. The basis for all of their costume was this red bodysuit or kind of swimsuit, and then the bottom half was like combat trousers and combat boots. So I think for me it was quite interesting to play with that balance of masculinity versus femininity, and this idea that the masculinity was kind of trumping or covering what lay underneath. In terms of lighting for this scene, we were quite constricted because of where the piece was being performed, which is in the Masonic Hall, which is a big kind of grand hall. It has quite an intimidating sort of military feel to it. So for us, we had to be quite constricted in our lighting choices. It was all quite plain washes because that's all we could really achieve. So for us, it was important to make sure that the action and the drama and the tension came from elsewhere. The penultimate scene in the play where Bradley is being gradually broken down by this questioning, whether he's okay. So for this, we had the text had been animated to look like it was being typed out in computer code, and that was projected onto the back wall. And the chorus, although they were obviously on stage, they were not very present in this scene. So it was very much this sense of this text or this voice that had its humanity removed. It wasn't even played by the chorus anymore. It was just written, and Bradley was responding to it, and this idea of this overseer. And that final detachment. And Bradley was tracing this floor in the Masonic Hall and constrained to this rectangle shape and just gradually walking round and round and round. So for that scene, it was about making sure that every time Bradley answers, he's getting broken down more and more in his body, in his movement, in his voice, until there's nothing left, really. The scene was very dim because it was in this kind of prison setting. The only light was really on Bradley to show this kind of isolation, this isolation from the outside world, and also so the text was much brighter than the bodies were. So that was kind of where the real focus was. That kind of dim, dingy state that shows there's no daylight coming in. There's not really much hope. There's not much left. It was very dimly lit. Yeah, there are lots of important issues to think about when staging this play now. The main one is that Chelsea Manning has since come out as a transgender woman. This makes doing this text very interesting because it has in it what we would normally call a dead name. So this is the name of the person who's transgender. That's their name that they had before they've come out. And the reason it's called a dead name is because it's supposed to be dead. You know, you're not supposed to use it. You're not supposed to mention it. It's quite a really hurtful thing for a lot of people. It's also sometimes trans people consider their life before they've come out as being a different person or being dead as well. So this makes this text really, really challenging in that you have this dead name that is enshrined in the text and is referred to constantly and is very, very present. And it also makes a lot of references to Chelsea Manning being, or the character Bradley as being a gay man, which we now know isn't the case. So it is interesting and it is challenging. I don't know personally whether changing the name would be enough. I think even if you change the name, there's so much in the narrative that's missing. I think it really is quite ironic because it's this play about truth and information, and there's this huge part of her story that's not there because no one knew about it. I'm not sure. We really tried to make it a trans-inclusive production when we were doing it. My partner, who's transgender, came in to run a workshop with us, so we had all the correct terminology and everyone felt like they were kind of armed with it. It was also, I think, helped by the female cast because there was this constant sense of femininity within it. They never tried to play as if they were male. They just were themselves. I think it's also important to acknowledge that when transgender people come out, it doesn't come out of nowhere. That part of them has always been there. They've only just shared it. I don't know whether they should change the name of the play. My gut instinct is probably, but I think it would have to be done with consulting trans people and how they want that story to be told. I think if I were to teach this text, I think it would be really important that we go in, like that you give your students all the knowledge that they need to feel empowered over it and that you feel that as well. I think by learning about definitions and what it means to be trans, you then open up a lot of interesting things to then explore dramatically as well. I personally would only ever use the name Bradley when referring to the character, and I would use the name Chelsea when talking about the person because that is her name. But I think when I ran these workshops with my cast about terminology and what was the right thing and what it meant, a lot of them said they felt like they'd learned a skill for life that they could take outside of the room. I think kind of in the past 5-10 years, transgender people have become a real topic of debate, but actually they're a very vulnerable group of people, and I think the more that we can do to educate around that, and I think the more that we can educate around the play, the more we can educate young people to be kinder and more accepting.